but I don't think there's a dirt track in the country now that can start the beginning of the night and have it good for the heat races and good for the main event. It's almost impossible with the technology and how good they can get the cars hooked up now.
Is that really what's eating the track up the most now? Is it just guys are really, you know, that not mechanical? Well, I guess you could call it mechanical grip, driver grip, tire grip. It's just laying that tire into the track and sandblast or you know rubbing it in as hard as we can that we've ever seen.
Yeah, just the cars are that hooked up that, it's when the racing's the best is when the pace slows down a little bit, and that gives guys opportunity. And when the track gets really wide, then it gives guys opportunity to do slide jobs, and you're getting multiple grooves. When it's heavier and it's narrower, it's really hard to pass. I mean, the pace is so fast that you have to be so much quicker than a guy to get by. So it's literally just the technology. I mean, shock technologies went crazy. I mean, it's impressive to see how good the shocks are and how uh, spring smashers for the late model guys and torsion bar raters for the sprint car guys. They can just get the cars so dialed in and so hooked up that you really have to get the track slick quick for it to get in a state where they can really race with each other.
Well, and you think about how much old dirt's out there. You know, some of these other tracks, besides the marquee ones that bring in new dirt from time to time, you know, they've been racing week in, week out, and they just grade up a rubbered up track and work it back in there. But there's still particles of rubber in the dirt. So it doesn't take as much to fire those up and rubber down the surface again, depending on how many years it's been ran on.
Yeah, and a factor, just a little variable. Every time the cars come off the racetrack and they're carrying mud off the track, it ends up in the infield or it
Hmm.
ends up in the pit area. So as time goes on, that dirt, that surface gets transferred over the fence to the car wash, to the pit area, to who knows where. It ends up going away. And so you always have to have a surplus, so to speak, or find a way. I mean, Knoxville, there's a vein of clay by the lake and the river that they found this vein of clay that they like, and that's where they try to go to restock material for the racetrack. And same at Eldora, we found some clay that it's temperamental. I like the characteristics of it. I like what it does as far as when it slicks off and how it holds. But it is we got it pretty close to the track too, but our clay is a little bit temperamental on getting too much moisture in it. If it rains too much or if it gets too much moisture in it, it tends to get soft, and that's where we get in trouble. So we got Levi Jones, who's our new general manager at Eldora, and that was one of the things going into the winter last winter that I told him that we need to try to find a way, finding something that we can mix in with the clay that we have. If it's a different dirt that goes into it or different clay that we can mix in that'll bond a little tighter, so that if it does get oversaturated, that we can keep a hard surface.
Well, and late models and dirt. I was there at that Eldora Million. I believe this was after I got kicked out of the media center. That was another event, but that was the funny one. Figured that out. But the dirt, y'all brought it in for that Eldora Million. You had a race prior to that. It didn't look good.
Yeah,
And y'all took that dirt off. Now, what that was 2021, I believe, or
I think
22,
so.
21. I think it was 21. Whatever happened to all that dirt that was taken off the track? Because it was moved,
We kept it.
correct? All of it
Yeah,
was
we
taken
kept
off.
it. So they literally, we we had worked all night on it and didn't think we were going to be able to get it right. And so we'd already made the call to a company in Ohio there to come help us clean a lot of that clay off, that new clay. And it was just so saturated and so wet that there was just no shot at getting it tight enough, because when they get wet like that, you need to open it up. You really need to rip it up to where you're digging about 6 inches down in the ground. You need the sun and wind to help dry it out, and then you can start laying it back in. And we just didn't have the time to do that and didn't know that that's what we were up against. This was new clay. We hadn't had a lot of experience with it yet, and it was the first time that we'd had a problem.
And this was the first million since the
Yeah.
Mopar million ish. I mean, it was the first million to win because the Mopar million was $1 million purse, not to win. So
So I remember Jerry Gappens was our GM at the time, and so we'd already made the phone call to get those guys to come help get it off of there. And we had written a they had our PR staff. They were writing the press release saying that we were going to have to postpone. And I went back to the motorhome and just laid on the couch. I was disgusted. I was sick to my stomach. I'm like, oh my God, we've let all these fans down. We've let all these teams and drivers down. And, we've done something historic, bringing back Earl's big event with the million and screwing this up basically. And, I remember getting the call from Jerry. He goes, "You still here?" I said, "Yeah." I said, I'm laying in the motorhome pouting right now." He goes, "You need to come down here." And so I went down to the gate on the backstretch, and they had started at the gate and had went backwards down the backstretch into turn two is the direction they were going, cleaning the clay off. And I remember driving down there, and I looked and I'm like, "Oh my God, it looks like a pool table." I mean, it was unbelievable how smooth it was. They had one bulldozer, one excavator, and three triaxle dump trucks that were working, five pieces of equipment, and they had worked for an hour and it got all the way to turn two from the gate in the backstretch. And kind of got wheeling around, and I got poking on it with a screwdriver. I'm like, I'm not so sure that we haven't got it shallow enough that we're getting into some of the old material and we might be able to work it. So I called Reese O'Connor from Kokomo. Reese came over, and I remember there were 4 or 5 of us that started working on it the rest of the day. And we started working while they were working, while they were still digging everything up. And we stockpiled that clay that we had taken off the racetrack. We had a pile of it. So we still have that. When we need it, we can introduce it back in, and we know what the consistency of it is. But we literally worked that night. I think there were 5 of us that worked till midnight, and we sent 3 of them back, and Reese and I stayed up through the night working, and we worked till 7:30 in the morning. And when the sun was coming up at 7:30, 2 of the guys that we had sent to bed at midnight got down there, and we never shut the tractors off and the grader off. Literally just switched places. And I know Reese and I went up and took like a 3 or 4 hour nap, and then we were all back down at it again. And it wasn't the best track that we've ever had by any means, but the teams got to race for $1 million and got to race for a big purse, and we got the show in. It wasn't, like I said, wasn't perfect, and I wasn't proud of it, but I was proud of the fact that we never gave up. And that was probably what was the most sickening thing of, hours before that, was sitting there going, we're going to have to give up on this, and we're not going to be able to get it in. And that's something we work really hard at Eldora. If we get rain, I mean, we've had a history. We'll run A mains at 4 in the morning because people already made the commitment to being there. And a lot of them drive from out of state. They'd rather see the show at 4 in the morning than they would give it up and have to come back a month later and have to make new travel plans and try to get off work to get there. So we've always worked really hard to try to have the policy of, if we can get it in, we're going to get it in. So that way, if it rains, people go out to their cars, or they'll hang out, at the bar, at the grandstands. But they know, as long as we're working on it, that we're going to do everything we can to get the show in, and that we're pretty consistent on that, I feel like.